Howdy, I'm back with another woodworking video. I just got done building a workbench. I needed to make this intro because I lost some of the footage. I started out with just a basic plan in my head. No plans on paper. I didn't sketch it up. I didn't do anything. I just went from a vision of what I wanted to the complete workbench. I only used scrap wood, reclaimed wood, and some twisted up pieces of 2x4 that was left over from when I did my shed. When I started, I planned on making the base of the workbench first, and then making the table to fit the top of it. But after I milled the boards for the base, I decided it was going to be a lot easier if I made the top first. So I did it the other way around. But somewhere during the process, 106 gigabytes of footage, I lost the milling process of the legs. But I still have some footage of them after I milled them, and I'll show that and explain what I did. Anyway, let's get on with it.
So these are the legs, the aprons, and the bottom braces. The legs I cut to 35 inches minus the 3-inch depth of the table. Then I glued 3 of them together for each leg. And my original length and width was going to be 48 by 24, but it didn't work out that way in the end. But I cut these boards shorter than that because of the joinery I was going to use. But because I decided to make the tabletop first, I went a completely different route, but more about that later in the video. So I might have mentioned this before, but I got these 2x8s from underneath those platforms over there. Is that focusing on my finger? So I'm trying to keep with the theme of using scrap wood and, oh, there it goes focusing on my finger again. Scrap wood and repurposed wood. So I didn't want to get, or I really couldn't afford new boards right now. So I'm going to cut these in half, and they're going to be a little bit bigger than a 2x4 when I'm done. And then I'll use that for the top of the workbench. They're pretty messed up, twisted and bowed and stuff like that. So I'm going to have to run them through the planer when I'm done. But I thought before I run them through the planer, I need to cut them down the middle so there will be less surface to have to flatten. I'm not going to show this whole process because I already showed the process of running them through the planer with the rest of the wood. But I might highlight a few things.
And now for something completely different.
When I was a kid, we lived very modestly for 2 reasons. First, consumerism hadn't got to the excessive point that it is today. And second, we just didn't have a lot of money. For these reasons, toys and entertainment were a very low priority. It was very seldom that I got any toys except at Christmas. And since my birthday was right after Christmas, I would always get Christmas/birthday presents. Even then, I was lucky if I got one good one. I'm not complaining, I'm just giving some background.
So I was using this board trying to take out some of the twist in the boards that I milled for the base. And it wasn't working real good. I was using 2-sided carpenter's tape to stick them to the boards, and that just kept slipping and everything. So I put a stop on the end, and I made another stop for the other side with screws sticking through it so I can ram this into the end of the board and then screw these down. And I'm going to use some wedges to put under the ends that are twisted to level them out.
Now, some might say that this is a bad thing, that we as a society were not as developed yet, or that I as an individual was deprived of my childhood. But I'd say the opposite to both counts, that this was a good thing for a young mind. I learned to improvise, to use my imagination, to find things within my environment and myself to keep myself busy, as well as to shape who I would become. And believe it or not, the only time I remember ever being bored was on cross-country trips.
Are we there yet?
No!
Are we there yet?
No!
Are we there yet?
No! So I got all the wood milled up, all straight and to the right lengths. The next problem I'm having is that most of this wood is shorter than 4 foot. Because I was using repurposed wood, and all of it came off of these, which are exactly 4 foot wide, and the 2x4s on the side took off 3 inches, at least 3 inches. And because I couldn't cut them long enough to put mortise and tenons in them, the next problem that I'm having is how to fasten them to the legs. So my only solution is to make mortise and tenon type joints with pieces
Eventually. 4 to 6 days later.
So I've been going round and round about how to hook the base together, and I came up with all these different ways, and I finally went back to my original thought, which was to use dowels. But to make that work right, I think I need to do the top first and then build the base around the top. So I ended up laying out the top the way I want it. These ends are going to be cut off after I get it all glued together. And each one of these is 45 inches long. And the last 45-inch board that I have is got two big-ass knots in it, one on each side, so I can't really use that. So I had some shorter ones. There's some over there, and these two. And what I did is I cut them down to 22.5, and I'm going to dowel them together first. Then I'm going to put that board right in the middle here. There's 13 boards well, there's 12 here, and plus that will make 13. So that'll be dead in the center. So I think it'll be strong enough to hold in the middle. So I'm going to do that first, and then I'm going to glue all the rest of these together.
This taught me some valuable lessons and life skills. Number one on the list would be the ability to evaluate any given situation and the relentless drive to come up with a solution. In other words, I don't look at things from a poor me perspective and or shift blame to someone or something else as the cause of my situation. The cause is only relevant in its potential to lead to a solution. Another important thing that I learned is that I always got more enjoyment out of the process than I did when it was finished. Fun and happiness are never a goal. They are just a welcomed byproduct or side effect of the process. So where is all this headed? If you didn't get enough of these abilities during your upbringing, what's the best way to learn the skills of problem solving and troubleshooting as an adult? In everything we do, we tend to look at life as a series of goals and milestones to achieve, with a lot of planning and refining our ideas during our downtime, while we are waiting for one thing or another to occur, waiting for parts and supplies, waiting for the money to buy these things, waiting for help, and at times waiting for inspiration. These things, although important, sometimes make us lose sight of the most important part, the journey.
But now you can kiss my ass goodbye. So since I decided to do the top first, I need to put the vise on before I can put the legs and everything else on. So I've turned this over, got the right corner that I want to put it on, and I don't know if you can see this, maybe if I get a little closer. I want to get the top of the vise lined up with the top of the bench, and there's a gap in here. So I'm going to have to make some kind of shims to put in there before I can bolt it down. And I also need to get the right position. So what I need to do is get the left leg, I've got it labeled here, left front, and put it up against here and make sure that it's flush with this side. So I'm going to flush it up with this side and then move this vise over until it's touching and get it right. Make sure the vise is all the way up against the top. And that's perfect. So take that off. I already put a line here because I forgot to turn the camera on the first time. Now I just need to put a line on this side. And that's where the vise is going to line up. But I need to cut into the wood deep enough so the back part of this vise is flush with this side. So I'm going to chisel out a little slot. I think that's a 1/2 inch deep.
When thinking about my past, the things that I remember the most are not the goals, but what I learned while achieving them, what I took from these experiences, and not just the big aha moments, the consequential and influential stuff like, I better not do that again, damn, this thing could kill me, or, wow, how did I not see that before? And maybe even more importantly, the little things that seem to go unnoticed during the process, in the moment, but float around in our subconscious and help shape the things that we do in the future. So after a lot of chiseling and using these rasps over here, I finally got it lined up right. It's lined up on the side, both sides, and the bottom. It's hard to see, because it's underneath here right now. But I got it all lined up. I put some shims here. For some reason, when I tried to put some shims in the back, it got all out of line over here. So no shims in the back, some shims in the front. So it's set now. All I got to do is bolt it down. All right, staying with the repurposing theme, I have a whole bucket full of nuts and bolts and screws and crap like that. And I dug around. These two don't match, but they'll work for the front of the bottom. These will work for the back of the bottom. And these will work for the very front. Front of the bottom, back of the bottom. And then there's two screws over here that I'll do last after I bolt these down, because I need to turn it over and put some shims in the front too. All right, I got these in. I messed up and didn't get the camera on. So, well, it was just drilling and bolting them in with a ratchet. And now I need to turn this over and do the ones in the front here. So I got this done off camera because it was kind of a pain in the butt. But the main reason I needed to put these shims in, I put one on this side and one on that side, which left a big gap in here, which I'll worry about later. But mostly so that I can get it flush with the outside here and flush with the outside here. So after I put the jaw on, the whole vise will still be parallel to the table. And I also decided to use round-headed screws on the outside here because the other ones were tapered and these didn't have tapered holes. What I'll end up doing is when I get the jaws ready, I'll put it on here and make some marks where these are and put little indentations in the back of the jaw before I glue it on. So I got this black oak a while back, and I think that this would be really good for the jaws. I need to cut them into 13-inch lengths. I got these two small ones and one bigger one over there. They're not exactly straight on the sides, so I'm going to have to deal with that after I glue them together. But I'm going to get 4 good 13-inch length pieces out of these. I don't even know if this one's going to work, but I'm going to cut them first, plane them, then I'll glue 2 pieces together for the front jaw and 2 for the back jaw. So after cutting all 4 of these to length, I lost some more footage somehow of gluing up the 2 halves and then cutting a space for them to fit over the vise screw and the guides. Then I cleaned them up using a trim router and a makeshift template. The best way to learn the skill of problem solving is to put yourself in situations with the most potential for problems to occur. Then, don't treat every setback with frustration like it's the end of the world, but just another puzzle to be solved. If you start a project with just a rough idea of what you want to achieve and basically wing it from start to finish with your main focus on the actions you're doing in the moment, you may run into a lot more problems than you would with a well laid out plan, but you'll learn a hell of a lot more about yourself and the materials you're using, as well as ideas and techniques that'll shape your knowledge base and develop your character. What I'm trying to say is when you're totally present in the moment, you absorb your actions and they become a part of you. So I test fitted this, got it laid out the way I want it to go. Because I'm doing this a little different than I planned from the beginning, this side is a little too short, so I cut another piece that I'm going to put in here. And the vise, got it here. Let's go up a little bit when I clamp it. And I need a little end piece here. I really thought about bringing this all the way out here, but I really didn't have it. Oop, there's my finger, huh? Yeah, I really thought about bringing this all the way out to the end, and then I'd have to bring it further on that side too, but I just really didn't have enough of this black oak to do it with. If you just go through the motions, it becomes more mechanical, like muscle memory. Just action and reaction. This is not a bad thing, and it's the best way to train yourself to perfect a skill, but it's not what really matters. Take, for example, a kid learning to play the piano. The best way to teach them how to play is repetition. Hours and hours of playing the same thing over and over and over again. But this lacks one thing: passion. This can't be taught. It's a feeling, an emotion, playing from the soul. But once they learn the mechanics of the keyboard and the sounds that they can get from it, from repetition, they'll eventually feel it. feel what they're playing. Only then are they able to improvise and create the music, not just play it. I got these casters for this bench that I need to put on. I think this is a good time to put them on. I started putting one of them on. After I get them all put on and have the bench done, I'll show you how they work. All right, so I got the casters on, but the main reason I wanted to get these on first is when I put the braces on, let me grab one. If I put them on the back, I don't want them interfering with these. So now that I have them on, then I can position these wherever I want them. And now, since I milled these before I even started the bench, see the play in them right there? Like everything else on this bench, since it's reclaimed wood, none of this wood is good. None of this wood is straight. And I did run these through the planer and got them flat when I milled them, but they've set for a while and now they're a little wonky. So that's the next thing that I'm going to have to deal with. With everything you do, you need some basic training. Learn the mechanics. But after that, the real training kicks in. The creating. This is where problem solving and troubleshooting start to become the best method of learning. Not training anymore, just a pure learning experience. From within, from your soul. By living in the moment and absorbing everything you do real time, it becomes more meaningful. It becomes you. It becomes who you are. From this point on, the structure of the bench is completely done. Everything I do from here is either for looks, cleanup, or secondary function. So before I turn the bench over and put it on the floor, I thought I would trim up the edges of the bottom of the bench. Instead of a round over, I decided to use a chamfer bit on the entire bench to give it a more honed, sharp look. It was finally time to get this thing upright and on the floor, and it was not an easy task by myself, and these damn casters were a pain in the ass. I probably should have waited to put them on. So the first thing that I needed to do after I got it upright was to do something about these nasty ends. Well, after I sand it down a little bit. But originally I was going to put 2x8s on the end so they'd match the front and the back.
Baby, if you wanna be my lover, you better take me home.
But I went a completely different route, and I'm glad I did because they turned out a lot better than I thought. Also, here I'm temporarily using screws to hold the wood in place while the glue dried because I didn't have enough long clamps. But they will be replaced with dowels after the glue dries. The most important parts of life are not your goals, but the journey. How you got to each goal, every step of the way. So slow down, live for every moment, enjoy every battle, every obstacle, every mistake, every problem to be solved, every breakthrough, every lesson learned, every conversation, every encounter, every person in your life, every person that you love. These are moments that shape you as a person. The things that make you who you are, your character. There is only one you, and with God's will, you'll become a better you. God is in the details. While the glue was drying on the sides, I switched gears for a little while to put the front jaw on my vise.
That's why they call me.
So after running into a few problems the other night with not having a drill bit deep enough to do this, I was trying to use this Forstner bit and it's not quite deep enough to go all the way through. So I dug out an old spade bit that I'm going to go the rest of the way through. But I noticed when I got back in here today, somehow I measured these wrong. I drew the line and I measured from the center this way 6 inches, and then for some reason I only went 5 over here. So first, before I re-drill these holes, I need to fill these holes. And I found this, and going with the reclaimed wood theme, this is an old handle for something, but it's 3/4 inch and it fits perfect in these holes. So I'm going to glue these in first, and then I'm going to drill out in the right spot. And also I still need to put a few holes on the corners, and that's for that MDF. I'm going to put some dowels on the bottom of that so that when I need to use it for glue ups and things like that, I'll put it over the bench and I'll just slide it in to a few dog holes. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I only had a basic outline of what I wanted to achieve, like having a thick top and legs for weight and stability, and having the vise flush with the top and the front side. I also wanted to make it with old, funky wood that I already had lying around. I used nothing new except some of the hardware and the glue. I did this to challenge myself in the full knowledge that I would run into a ton of problems that I'd have to figure out as I went. I actually left a dozen or so out of this video because it was running too long. I usually have a better plan from the start of any type of project, but I always leave a lot of room for improvising and troubleshooting when problems happen or creative direction shifts. I've noticed throughout the years that if I overplan something, I'm more likely to get frustrated and or disappointed when the inevitable problems occur. And if other people are involved, chances of strictly following a plan drop drastically. Try overplanning a camping trip and you can lose friends, or at least piss them off. So try to challenge yourself in most things that you do. Think outside the box, do stuff that's beyond your current knowledge, and push yourself to expand that knowledge. Routine is boring and monotonous, and safe. Nothing is learned from playing it safe. Taking calculated risks are the only way to move forward and not get caught in a rut. Also, monotony can be dangerous because you lose focus. Problem solving and troubleshooting help maintain focus by keeping you in the present. Life is full of adventure, so explore, take a chance, take pleasure, and be present in each and every moment. Find joy in the simple things. Notice the things that go unnoticed. And slow down and smell the roses. So the last thing that I need to do on this bench before I put on the finish is make a dog for this hole here so I can bring it up when I need it, and that other dog will go in these holes, and then I can hold pieces of wood right there. Yeah, that paint is still on me from doing this. That's not dry yet, so I better be careful. But so it took me 2 tries to get the right size. This is the same wood that I used on the jaws. This one was a little too short. I thought I had the right size, but I was wrong. The way I'm going to bolt this on is, I looked through my bucket of bolts. This is just the right width to put into this. So I'm going to have to be careful so I don't go over, because I can't have it hanging out the back. And I want to have it flush on the front. I'm going to put it right in the middle, and I'm going to use this, and I need to make it long enough to go at least halfway through this, and then through this, which is about another 1/2 inch, and then about at least 3/4 of an inch into this ball. This is one of the balls that I have left from when I did my bandsaw. You might have seen that. We've got quite a few pull balls on that. Another one in the back. Well, this one's not one of these small ones. This is a real one. The thing I was worried about is when I put it in here, I'm still going to be able to
turn this. I can't do it with one hand, but it just barely clears. So I'm going to use that to cinch it down. Alright, so I got the bolt in. I had to drill it out. This side looks a little shaky, but I got it in. If you want to know how I do this, there's another video I did about my bandsaw restoration that shows how I did this. And now, I just need to put this in. And screw this in. And it locks it into place. I can go up or down. Oop. I might have messed up. I might have to cut another one of these. And I'll be back when I'm done. I'm shameless when it comes to loving you. I'll do anything you want me to. I'll do anything at all. Anyway, after over a month of building this thing, it's finally done, and I am going to go in and edit it and try to get it up on YouTube. So I hope you've learned as much about troubleshooting and working with reclaimed wood and working with small benches as I did in this process. And I hope to see you on the next video. Adios.